Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into a 1952 science fiction story called Children of the Chronotron today.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's got time travel, alien encounters, all that fun stuff.
Sounds right up our alley.
Exactly. So the story starts with a plane crash,
Okay.
but it's not your typical survival tale. Like, they end up in this world where there's no night.
No night at all.
Nope, just constant daylight and an unfamiliar sun.
So how do they even know what time it is? Or where they are?
Right. I mean, talk about disorienting. And that's just the beginning.
I bet. So how do they react to all this?
Well, there's this fascinating mix of characters.
Okay.
Like, you've got Henry. He's a teenager, but surprisingly sharp.
Teenagers can surprise you?
He uses what he calls extrapolation to put the pieces together.
Extrapolation.
Yeah, basically like educated guesswork based on the clues they find.
So he's like the detective of the group.
Exactly. Then there's Uncle Andy, the engineer. He's trying to, stay calm and rational.
Makes sense in a situation like that.
And then Dr. Edwards, the scientist, he's a bit more skeptical, especially of Henry's theories.
You always need a skeptic to keep things grounded.
True. And then there's, of course, our antagonist, Tommy Weston.
Ah, so there's conflict within the group, too.
Oh, absolutely. Weston's a construction worker, and, well, he sees this whole crisis as a chance to grab power.
Classic power grab.
Yeah, it's like the story saying, even in a crazy situation like this, human nature doesn't just disappear.
Makes you think, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And the descriptions of this alien world, they're so vivid.
Okay, like what?
Constant daylight, strange plants and animals. They even come across these swimming devil lizards.
Swimming devil lizards. That sounds intense.
They're described as bright scarlet with blue and yellow gills.
Wow, colorful.
Yeah, and get this, they have black eyes that pierce you with a deadly stare of murderous hate.
Oh, okay. Maybe not so cuddly then.
Yeah, definitely nightmare fuel. But speaking of terrifying, we got to talk about the alien encounter.
All right, lay it on me.
Okay, so picture this. Taller than a man, ponderous arms, with six-fingered hands, leathery skin. Yeah, 6 fingers. And mottled skin, too, like patches of different colors.
Interesting.
And the kicker, a single eye.
Whoa. Okay, that's definitely alien.
Right. I mean, the survivors must have been freaking out.
I can only imagine. So this alien, what does it do?
Well, things get even creepier when it kidnaps 2 babies.
Kidnaps babies. That's chilling.
I know, right? It goes from being this mysterious presence to a direct threat.
Yeah, that definitely raises the stakes.
For sure. So here they are, stranded in this strange world. There's an alien kidnapping babies.
They've got Weston trying to take over.
Exactly. It's a recipe for disaster.
Sounds like they've got their work cut out for them.
No kidding.
It's amazing, though, how Henry, the teenager we were talking about?
Yeah.
His theory about the alien, as wild as it sounds, it kind of starts to make sense.
Right. Like connecting it to the Pied Piper of Hamelin, that's pretty out there.
It is, but think about it.
Okay.
Both the alien, the way it's described, and the Pied Piper in the legend, they both have this mottled skin.
Oh, yeah. The patches of different colors.
Exactly. And they both use this pipe-like instrument.
Okay. I see where you're going with this.
So Henry's thinking, what if the Pied Piper wasn't just a fairy tale? What if it was a real event, but involving time travel?
Whoa. Okay. Now that's where things get really interesting.
Right? And then he goes even further.
What do you mean?
He connects the missing children from the Hamelin story to those babies the alien kidnapped from the plane.
So he's saying this isn't just some random alien, it's a time-traveling one that's been around for centuries.
Exactly. And then there's that whole other thing with Henry and Marcia, their trip to the future.
Oh, right. I'd almost forgotten about that.
It's easy to get lost in this story. There are so many layers.
No kidding. Yeah. So remind me, what happens with them in the future?
They're suddenly transported to this timeline where Earth is dying.
Dying? How?
The story doesn't go into specifics, but it's pretty bleak. Humanity's split into these warring factions, New Britannia and Texania, and there's this giant spaceship under attack.
So it's like a glimpse into a potential apocalyptic future.
Exactly, but the crazy part is
What?
when they snap back to their present, no one else remembers it.
Seriously. They're the only ones who remember this whole future war thing.
It's like it never happened for anyone else but them.
Talk about a mind trip.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine going through all that and then no one believes you.
Right. It's this huge burden they have to carry this knowledge of a possible future that no one else can even comprehend.
It really makes you question what reality even is.
That's one of the brilliant things about this story. It plays with your perception of reality.
Yeah, for sure. And then, on top of everything else, we get the reveal about Scarface.
Scarface.
The guy who saved them from Weston's gang, remember?
Oh, yeah. He was a bit of a mystery.
Turns out he's not just some tough guy. He's Kimnar, a time traveler from a dying planet called Exlarn.
Wait, hold on. So there's another time traveler.
Yep. And his planet, Exlarn, they're the ones who developed all this advanced technology, including a time machine called the Chronotron.
Whoa. Okay, so now we've got time travelers from 2 different planets.
Right. And it turns out the alien who kidnapped the babies, Malarn.
Malarn.
Yeah, he's an Exlarnan too.
So they're both from the same planet, but they seem to have very different motives.
Exactly. Kimnar's trying to help Earth, but Malarn, he's a whole other story.
His motives are still kind of unclear, right?
Yeah, the story keeps you guessing about what he's really after.
Which makes it even more intriguing. And then, to make things even more complicated, there are the Star People.
But don't even get me started on the Star People.
They're this benevolent race from a future timeline, somehow connected to Kimnar.
Okay, I'm trying to keep all this straight.
It's a lot to take in. So we've got our survivors, we've got Malarn, we've got Kimnar.
And the Star People watching over everything.
Exactly. And in the middle of it all is Earth. Its fate hanging in the balance.
Talk about high stakes.
And here's where the ethical stuff gets really heavy.
What do you mean?
Kimnar, he's faced with this impossible choice. Save Earth, but potentially wipe out his own people and their civilization.
Or let Earth be destroyed to preserve his own kind.
It's a heartbreaking dilemma.
I can't imagine having to make a decision like that.
The story really forces you to confront these huge questions about the value of one world versus an entire civilization.
Yeah, no easy answers there.
And this is where Henry and Marty's experience in that alternate timeline comes back into play.
The one with New Britannia and Texania?
Exactly. Turns out that wasn't just some random possible future.
Oh.
It was directly connected to Malarn's actions.
Hold on, I'm a little lost. How does that all tie together?
Okay, so remember those 2 kids Kimnar rescued from Malarn back in 1944?
Vaguely, remind me.
Malarn had kidnapped a whole group of children for some kind of experiment.
Okay.
He thought they held the key to achieving his goals, whatever those were.
Right, and those kids, they turned out to be, like, super fertile or something.
Yeah, and their descendants ended up becoming this incredibly advanced civilization, the one Kimnar's now a part of.
So Malarn was trying to prevent that future from happening.
Exactly. He couldn't let those kids create this powerful civilization that threatened his plans.
Wow, talk about long-term planning.
Right. And that's where the plane passengers come in.
How so?
Malarn knew that if those specific groups of survivors went back to specific points in Earth's past, their actions would lead to New Britannia and Texania.
And ultimately, to the rise of that civilization he was trying to stop.
You got it.
But if Malarn erased that timeline, why do Henry and Marcia still remember it?
That's the really strange part. It seems like they, through their connection to Kimnar and their own developing abilities, they're somehow sensitive to these shifts in time.
So they're carrying around these memories of a reality that no longer exists.
It's like they're haunted by a ghost of a timeline.
This is blowing my mind.
It really makes you question everything, doesn't it?
For sure. But before we get too deep into the existential stuff,
Yeah.
we can't forget about the immediate danger our survivors are still in.
Right. Malarn might be injured, but now Weston has a gun.
Things are definitely about to get even more complicated.
And then there's Kennedy, the pilot of the Cosmic Drive rocket.
Yeah.
He's presented with this opportunity to go back in time and prevent a major catastrophe, the moon bomb that's going to destroy Earth.
So he's like a time-traveling hero.
Well, it's not that simple. Remember Kimnar's warning.
About saving Earth, potentially destroying an entire civilization.
Exactly. Kennedy's torn between saving his own world and realizing that there's this much bigger picture at play.
I can't even imagine having to make that choice.
It's a classic ethical dilemma, you know?
Yeah, do you save your own planet or sacrifice it for the sake of something even bigger?
And the story really makes you think about the potential consequences of time travel, even when it's used with good intentions.
I'm on the edge of my seat here. What does Kennedy decide?
You'll have to wait for the final part of our deep dive to find out.
All right, I'm ready for the grand finale. So Kennedy's got this massive decision to make, right? Does he save Earth or let it be destroyed to protect that advanced civilization?
Well, the story doesn't give us any easy answers. It really drives home the weight of his choice.
Yeah, I bet. So what does he do?
In the end, he chooses to fire on Malarn's ship.
He destroys it.
Yeah, takes it out completely. It's a moment of, I think, both incredible courage and maybe a bit of desperation.
Wow. So he saves humanity, but at the cost of wiping out another civilization.
Exactly. It's like a victory, but a really heavy one.
Yeah, I can't imagine having that on your conscience, saving one world by destroying another.
It's a decision that's going to stick with him for sure.
So what happens to Henry and Marcia and Kimnar? Did they get to go home?
Yeah, with Millarn's ship gone, that alternate timeline collapses and they're all sent back to their own times.
So back to normal.
Well, as normal as things can be after all that.
Right. I mean, they've been through so much, seen things that no one else will ever believe.
It makes you wonder how they even begin to process it all, you know? To go back to their everyday lives after experiencing all that.
It's like, what's the point of anything when you've seen the end of the world, right? Or at least a version of it.
And there are these subtle hints that their journey through time has changed things, just a little.
Like what?
For instance, the word billiards, it's gone, replaced by pool.
Oh, wow.
Ugh.
So even though they're back in their own times, things aren't exactly the same?
Exactly. It's like a ripple effect, these tiny changes that most people wouldn't even notice.
It makes you think, what other changes did they unknowingly cause? It's kind of creepy, actually.
It is. It makes you realize that what we think of as history, as this fixed thing, it might be more fluid than we realize.
I've got to say, this deep dive has been mind-blowing. Children of the Chronotron really makes you think about time travel, the choices we make, and how it's all connected.
It's one of those stories that sticks with you long after you've finished it, you know?
Totally.
Yeah.
What do you think is, like, the biggest takeaway from this whole thing?
I think it's a cautionary tale, in a way. Like, even with good intentions, messing with time, with forces we don't fully understand, it can have unintended consequences.
Yeah, it's like that saying, with great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah.
Right? It applies to time travel, too, I guess.
Definitely. And it reminds us that even small actions can have ripple effects that we might not even realize until much later.
Well said. I think this story has given us a lot to think about.
It has, for sure.
And for everyone listening, if you enjoy this deep dive, let us know. Send us your suggestions for what we should tackle next. We're always on the lookout for more mind-bending material.
Absolutely. We love hearing from you.
Until next time, keep exploring and keep questioning.